Hey, Jim Toscano here, and welcome to the Monday night live stream. That last thumbnail was completely incorrect. I apologize. Tonight is Vintage Drum Night, and it's really a family affair. I have two of my very good friends here. One that I've been friends with since I'm a child, pretty much, standing in front of his door in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, propping up his broom. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, we're going to be talking about all kinds of vintage drums tonight, and it's kind of a show and tell episode, as well as an interview with two gentlemen that are really passionate about collecting drums. And before I get into that, I want to mention that on the schedule, there's a quick schedule update. In the next few live streams, we have some kind of cool things going on. So I just want to give you guys, I'm going to read down the schedule real quick. So next week, from the musical Come From Away, Larry Lelly, drummer Larry Lelly, great drummer who does a lot of work on Broadway. He's going to be with us next week on January 17th. On Monday, January 24th, Hamilton drummer Andres Ferrero is going to be here. He's a great drummer, really nice guy, and he's going to be talking about his experience. And then the weekend after that, studio veteran Alan Schwartzberg is going to be with us. That's going to be a lot of fun. Alan's a really interesting guy. He's done a lot of interesting records, a lot of hit records. in the 70s and 80s especially, but he's still active, and he'll be coming to us from Florida. He's also a Brooklyn guy, but he's down in Florida. You know, he's snowbirding. And then on Monday, February 17th, Avril Lavigne drummer and good friend Rodney Howard will be on the show. And then February 21st, Hit Like a Girl winner Victoria Bialik will be here. And then we have legendary drummer Gary Husband on February 28th. And I just added Danny Gottlieb to the show. And Russ Miller, he has a booked date, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But Russ Miller will be on the show. So among others, there are others that are coming along, but I just wanted to give a quick schedule update. And don't forget to click the QR code for my link tree and my mailing list. And I just want to thank some companies: Vader Drumsticks, Prologix Percussion, Offset Pedals, Sabian Cymbals, and Black Magic Designs for my wonderful switcher and monitor. And here's the lovely blackout pad from Prologix, American made, of course. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Oh my God. All right, so listen, without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest tonight. So I have two guests, and one is Dave Clive, who has the Dave Clive Gretsch Museum, and he's got a very cool New Orleans funk band, and he's an avid drummer and collector and educator and a really close friend of mine. So I'm going to bring in Dave Clive real quick. Let me super source this, and there he is, Dave Clive on camera. Yeah. Is your mic on? Now your mic is on. So this is my good buddy Dave Clive, who's also from Brooklyn. We've known each other for a very long time. And now I'm going to bring in, from Erie, Pennsylvania, Pat Ross. All right. Pat Ross is a drummer, educator, and Pat Ross is also part of my hand technique workshop and a student of mine, but also a wonderful drummer and educator himself, and also a collector and a hell of a nice guy. So this is my team tonight. And
all right.
So good to have you guys on the show. We've been planning this for quite some time. I think it's been
about 6 months, I think.
About 6 months or so. Yeah. And so both of these gentlemen are going to be showing some really nice drums, some rare drums. I'm going to start off actually with Dave Clive, who has a collection of pretty rare snare drums. And Dave, how long have you been collecting drums? Since you're like
12 years old.
12 years old.
Yep.
Since he was just a boy, he's been collecting drums. Some of them his wife doesn't even know about.
That's a good thing she's not tuning in tonight.
Good thing she's not tuning in.
No.
That's true. Valerie's not on Facebook.
Actually, there's a really funny. Do you guys follow Jerome Flood on Instagram? He does like drummer videos where he overdubs his own voice, air drumming, like mouth drumming.
Right.
Over people's stuff, and he kind of pokes fun at people. And he does these great videos, but he posted one today where he had this little boy sitting with a calculator, and the meme says, when your wife asks you how much the drum set cost, and the little kid is going, $5 plus, and he's holding a calculator, and he's like adding up like some ridiculous number.
Very cool.
So, yeah. So we all know about that, I think. Right, Dave?
I have to say this. My wife knows a lot about vintage drums. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, how could she not?
How could she not? Right.
She lives with you. I mean, it's, eventually she's going to run into a few of them, and you're going to have to explain yourself.
Nice. By the way, we will be checking into the chat, and I see some of our friends already lining up in the queue. So we'll say hello pretty soon, but I just know that right off the bat, Anthony Cucina is hanging in here from New Jersey or Manhattan, wherever he is tonight. Kevin Lehman in Colorado is hanging with us tonight. Lucia Seminara, of course, hanging with us tonight. Great student of mine. John Gill from Oneonta, New York is hanging with us. Stan Zlotkowski the third.
Oh, that's Big Stan.
Big Stan hanging with us.
Hey, Big Stan.
Yeah.
So just saying hello real quick to some of the people that are lining up in the chat. And Bob Sears hanging with us. Of course, Bob Sears.
I love Bob Sears.
Great Bob Sears, and he's part of our hand technique workshop as well. So what I'm going to do is, without any further ado, I'm going to move over to my shot of Dave and I. We're going to start talking about Dave's drums, and then we're going to bring Pat in a little bit. So, Pat, you're on standby. And we'll start out. Actually, we'll just start out with the two of us, Dave, if that's cool.
Sure.
And so thanks for coming. Dave showed up
My
with a
pleasure.
van and started loading drums into the studio. He's actually right over here. You can see my hand in his shot.
E.T.
E.T. phone home. So I found it felt it was easier just to set up his own camera, and that way we can kind of show Dave's drums really well. You pulled up with your minivan and started loading drums into my studio about 6 o'clock tonight. So I'm really excited to see what we have. And don't forget to remind me about your books. That we're gonna show some books.
Yes.
Let me put these over here. Okay, let's do it, man. I'm going to bring up Dave Clive.
Well,
You're on, buddy. Let's see what you got.
let's start chronologically, my friends.
Oh, my God.
This is my oldest Ludwig snare drum. Years ago, I got it from a student, and when I started teaching him, I said, my student said to me, my grandfather played the drums. And I immediately says, does he still have his drum set? And he said, yes. And I said, well, if he ever sells it, I'll buy it. And I did. So this is my Ludwig. Originally, back then, it was called a Ludwig Deluxe. So it's a brass drum that was painted black and hand engraved. It's the scroll design. They were only made in 1924 and 1925. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful drum. I love it. Anyway, I have the whole
That
set.
is a gorgeous drum, by the way.
You want to hold it, Jim? Or whatever. We can leave it right here. How's that?
Yeah, sure. Leave it up on top so you can see it. So, by the way, I had a similar drum. It didn't have the engraving, but it looked similar. And because I found this drum set when I was a kid, and I gave that snare drum to Vince Giordano.
Wow.
But I don't know what it was. I have no idea. I know that it had tube lugs like that and the same kind of claws and similar rims. Didn't have any engraving, was not black. It looked just like a sort of brushed nickel kind of look to it, but just because it was very old. But I don't know what it was. And Vince was collecting, and I gave it to him. I don't know.
Ludwig had a lot of exotic drums back in the day. So when I got this snare drum, it came with the whole set. And the 26-inch bass drum is in my van. I can go get it, Jim.
All right.
And this is the low boy that actually came with the set. So this is like a Ludwig hi-hat. The only problem is when you play it, it's a little bit low
Yeah.
on the floor. You know what I mean? So it's a little hard to reach. But it's totally original. I think it's, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, Wahlberg and Auge made it back then. So,
Yeah, I will say that
You are correct.
when JoJo was making his foot DVD,
yeah.
I brought him over to Vince's place because Vince has a whole collection of like lowboys and snowshoe hi-hats and like
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And JoJo was really interested in the snowshoe and some old bass drum pedals. So those things are really rare. He's got a whole collection of pedals, Vince. So,
Old bass drum pedals.
Yeah, of old bass drum pedals. We should have him on sometime to show his drums, but yeah, he wouldn't have time. But it's pretty cool, like that stuff is still floating around, that you actually have one, which is amazing. All right, back to you, Dave.
Okay. Anyway, if there are any questions or, I'm here to help.
Yeah. If there's any questions, just keep fielding them in the chat. I'm going to read off some things in the chat as we go. I'll be monitoring the chat. Later, of course, I'll bring up the chat window online and we'll get the three of us all together. There is one up front. John Gill says, I have a question, and Lucia has a question. John Gill said, hey, Jim, I have a question for Dave. I have a 1953 Gretsch 3-ply black diamond pearl finish, 9x13, 16x16, and 16x22 bass. Is the 16x22 bass fairly uncommon size? The bass roars like a cannon.
Yes, that's very rare. If it really is a 16-inch you're measuring, there's just the shell, right? If the depth is 16, yes, it's very rare because back then they were all 14. All the old bass drums I have, well, they're either 14 by 22 or even 12, but 16 is a modern day size. So yeah, that's definitely rare.
So John, take pictures and send it to my email. I'll forward it to Dave. Maybe we can kind of get some info.
Sure.
Yeah. Peter Retzlaff, welcome. How you doing, buddy? Lucia said, what made you guys want to collect snare drums?
Okay. Well, when I was about 12 years old, well, I've always loved to play the drums. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but once I started playing the drums, my dad, who was a famous art director for Life magazine, we went to a garage sale, and they were selling a Gretsch drum set with a full set of Zildjian cymbals for $100. I was like, $100?
What?
Oh my God. So I went back and I said, what happened to the cymbals? And he goes, some city slicker bought them. You want the drums? $25. So that is, I sent you a picture, Jim. So I have a natural maple Gretsch broadcaster. It's probably from the late 30s. So I just fell in love with the lugs and the sound and all that stuff. So I still have, there it is.
That's the drum?
That's the drum. That's the drum. So I guess the difference between me and most is that I kept my old drums and then would buy more old drums. And I've been doing that since I was a teenager. So, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I fell in love with Gretsch probably because I saw, thanks to my father, I saw the Rolling Stones really young, maybe 13 or something like that, at the Garden. And Charlie Watts played Gretsch, and I wanted Gretsch. And when I got into jazz, super into Tony Williams, Elvin Jones. I mean, back then, everybody played them. Mel Lewis. I think Max was already on Ludwig at that point. But I just fell in love with Gretsch. I didn't know really why. I knew they sounded great, I'll tell you a funny story. I went to buy my drum teacher sent me to Manny's to buy my first drum set, and I was like 12 years old. The guy goes, what kind of drums do you want? And I want Gretsch. This is going to be embarrassing, but true. He says, why do you want Gretsch? I'm like, the logo. The logo they got on the head? I saw Charlie. It's so cool. It's so cool. And he goes, son, give me another reason. The hi-hat stand. It's like Fred Flintstone. So then he goes, look, kid, what's your favorite color? And I said, blue. Send down a set of blue Ludwigs. I'm like, I don't want Ludwigs. I don't want Ludwigs. But at least I was smart enough. I kept my Ludwig Superphonic from way back then. Sold the Ludwigs, bought a set of fives, bought a set of Gretsch, and that set of Gretsch is in my drum studio in Brooklyn, and I've owned it since I was a teenager.
Wow. Oh, that's crazy. Hey, Pat, real quick.
Yes,
why did you start collecting snare drums?
I think I started to collect snare drums because the tom-toms and the bass drums seem to be kind of, generic in a way in recordings. I mean, there's really good ones and stuff, but I've always been of the thought process that your snare drum, it defines your sound.
Yeah.
And so, and it really, when we get to my portion, it was really kind of like by accident. Drums follow me home. I don't know how that works. But to piggyback off of what David said, definitely, I was 12 when I got my first kit. It happened to be a Gretsch kit. I had to do some research because I hadn't seen them. And then on Saturday afternoons, the Monkees were on.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was it. There they were, the Gretsch logo, the Gretsch drums. Although Mickey played kind of weird. I mean, it was sort of, if you ever watch the way he's set up, it's almost like open-handed something. But that was it for me. Once I saw, because I'd seen the Ludwig logo on, Beatle pictures in different magazines and stuff. But, the Gretsch, like David, kind of nailed it there. It's a great logo. And there's a really neat story about that. There's a gentleman in New York City who designed that and happened to just be an art person who lived across the street from, Fred Gretsch Sr., and they played cards together or something, and they asked if he would be willing to sketch something for them. And that's where the logo that's on David's shirt came from.
Oh, that's crazy.
The symbol, and there's a little cowbell on there and a wood block and, the spurs. It's cool, man.
Wow, very cool. And by the way, Let's say hello to Mr. David Garibaldi hanging with us tonight. Very cool. Thanks for stopping by.
Wow.
Definitely go back to the archives and watch the David Garibaldi episode.
Great.
Oh, it's wonderful. It really is.
Which is a great episode. And it's on my YouTube channel. And David was kind enough to play for us, which was wonderful. I miss you, brother, and we will definitely talk soon. Let's get back to Dave. And actually, there's a question. There's a question for Dave from Anthony, who is saying, in a nutshell, what differences do you hear in today's Gretsch drums, I guess, compared to the earlier stuff?
Wow, that's a good one. Honestly...
Don't hold back, Dave.
Okay. I love the old Gretsch drum, and I did the old Gretsch drum sincerely, and there's this whole thing about the Jasper and the Keller shells. That seems to be a big thing. I have a great friend, Frank Bellucci, who's very close with Vinnie Colaiuta. I know Vinnie Colaiuta, and I have met him, and we discussed it. He really hears the difference between the Jasper and the Keller. Vinnie has incredible ears. You know, Vinnie Colaiuta is a genius. I had this exact same conversation with Stanton Moore, and he said no disrespect, I love Stanton Moore, but he could not hear the greatest difference between the Jasper and the Keller. Now, the most important thing is, can you play the drum? Now, obviously, I collect a lot of old drums. So my Ludwig snare drum from 1924, I love it, and I will never sell it. But honestly, it's not a great gig drum. This is a Ludwig Black Beauty from the early 70s.
Wait.
Okay. It's a great drum. I've used it on gigs. I've used it on sessions. It's a totally playable drum. So at this point in time, I have so many drums, I got to be able to take the drum out on gigs.
Right.
The problem with the old Gretsch drums, especially if they're made in the 50s or the 40s, is the calfskin heads were made to fit on the drum. So it sometimes is a problem. You know, Evans makes heads. There are certain drum heads that fit on the old, but it can definitely be a problem. If you buy a modern day Gretsch drum, you're not going to have any problems putting the head on. You know what I mean? So that's really important. I mean, some people are snobby, you know, but they all sound great to me. In 1961, I'm a catalog freak, and so is my dear friend Pat. 61, they said, Gretsch basically said, we have a 6-ply shell construction, okay, with the maple and either poplar or gum, and that design they still use today. So that's a long time. From 1961 till today, they've basically been doing the same design. Back in the 30s and 40s, Gretsch made their own shells, or even earlier, but once they started mass producing them, Jasper made their shells. Jasper went out of business, so that's not Gretsch's fault. And then Keller does it. I think Keller makes great shells. So today, I mean, there's so many variables, but basically the thin 6-ply shell, I'm pointing to a Lang drum right here, but it's definitely got the Gretsch DNA. Here we go. Here's my Max Roach. Let's pull this out. So this is a totally original Max Roach snare drum from 61. Okay, so this is a 6-ply shell. So once they came up with this design, they didn't really change it much. What was different between Gretsch and all the other companies, and I was just reading up to be on top of things today for Jim's show, is Billy Gladstone worked with Gretsch, and actually his drums, this is my Gretsch Gladstone, the thin shell, the die-cast hoops, at that point in time, nobody did that. I mean, I love Ludwig, Slingerland, Rogers. I love them all. I love all the American drum companies. But back then, basically, the companies would, here we go, they would take, let's say Red Sparkle, lay the red sparkle down. Ludwig did this, I found out the hard way. They lay down the red sparkle, then they'd lay down the mahogany, a couple plies of mahogany, the maple reinforcement hoops. Now, what Ludwig did, because I had a student who did that, is they, Pat, what's the right word for this? So they lapped it, so the sparkle actually went inside the drum.
Yep, that's the right term.
Thank you. Yep. So I had stripped one of my Gretsch sets and literally put a lacquer thinner on the silver sparkle, and I just pulled off the finish. I was 12 years old. So with the Ludwig, my student did that. The drum exploded because the plastic went inside the shell. So when you cut the plastic, and basically the reinforcement hoops held the drum together. So if you cut it, the drum exploded. Gretsch was made like a German tank, and therefore the shell was so structurally strong, basically what could go wrong? It could go out around. I did buy an old set of Gretsch that the guy was a rock drummer. He never had the front head on, so the bass drum did kind of go oval, like egg shape. But the shells are basically indestructible. And what Billy Gladstone said is like a violin, you have a thin shell where, so basically the head is touching the bearing edge. It's just thin. All the other companies had a massive reinforcement hoop. Now, no disrespect, because I love Rogers, and I think of all the companies that use reinforcement hoops, through the late 60s, Rogers had it down. Rogers was, the best. But some of the other companies, no disrespect, but they kind of used fat reinforcement hoops, thin shelves. They were less expensive to make. You know what I mean? Especially when you slap the whole thing together. So I think Gretsch just kind of got it right. And today, I love Tama drums. These are Star Classic, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they're copies of Gretsch. Yamaha Maple Custom. I played a set when I was on tour with Iguazu. They're copies of Gretsch. Pearl, Maple, all the top of the line drum companies copy the Gretsch design that they came up with, in the late 50s, the 60s. They did vary 3-ply. So in the Gretsch book, it's maple, poplar, maple. So it's 3 plies, and that was a 3-ply shell. They did mess around with 4 and 5 and 3 and 2, but Billy was like, it's got to be 3. So they stuck with 3, and then by the 60s, they went to 6-ply. Jim, could you do me a favor and just hand me that Gretsch book? The green one, yeah. Great. So I love this book. And not to be egotistical, but I'm in this book, and not to be taken the wrong way, but what kind of separates me from the rest is, I can't find it, of course, is I have a set of Gretsch here it is, from 1935. So everybody has old Gretsch. Paul Cooper, who's the master drum builder there it is right there. Nope, there it is. Sorry.
And I have that slide I can bring up.
Yeah, that's cool. So Paul Cooper, who works for Gretsch, there's a number of guys who have old kits, but this set I bought is completely original drum set from 1935. The snare drum is killer, 6.5 by 14, 8 by 12 tom, 10 by 14, 16 by 16, 14 by 26, all original calfskin heads, excuse me. Thank you very much, Jim. That picture was taken, I used to teach drums and percussion at Kingsborough College. So everything on that stage is mine except for the chimes, but it's totally original.
I was going to ask you about the chimes. That's funny.
You probably played them when
Yes.
we did that concert together, Jim.
Yeah.
So that front head, that's original. That's a calfskin head. That's not the new Gretsch broadcaster. That's the original calfskin head that's hand painted. My wife was like, "Did you paint that?" And I was like, "No, I didn't paint that." "Oh, well, it's not perfect." I'm like, "I'm not an artist, Valerie. You are." But anyway, so that is my oldest Gretsch set. So anyway, this is a great book, and I love it. On the cover is a Billy Gladstone snare drum. So I think the most valuable drums ever are the Billy Gladstone snare drums, because there's only about 50 that he made from in the 1950s to 1961. Very sorry to say Billy Gladstone died in 61. And then Arnie Lang took over. And not to digress, but Arnie's snare drums are an exact replica of the Billy Gladstone from 1951. This is one that Arnie Lang made for me back in 2018. So anyway, going chronologically, this is my Gretsch Gladstone right here. And
wait. Okay, hit it.
So this is a kind of a cool story. I have been an avid Gretsch collector since I was in high school, and my mom was a super, super cool mom. She wanted me to play the piano, but she said, take piano lessons for 2 years. I'll get you drum lessons. So she did. So in high school, I actually went to Manhattan Prep. I was a preppy. On Saturdays, I used to take the train to Manhattan, go uptown to Manhattan School of Music. I took drum lessons with James Price, Justin DiCiocio, Fred Hinger. And Justin called me a few years ago and said, Dave, I'm selling my Gretsch Gladstone, and I know you're a Gretsch fanatic. You've been since you were in high school. I was like, wow, you remember that? He goes, yeah, I remember you're a Gretsch nut. I said, oh, thank you, Justin. So he said, I want you to have it. You're going to have to pay for it, but I'm going to give you a deal. So this is Justin Giaccioccio's Gretsch Gladstone. What's so amazing, Jim, could you do me a big favor? Hand me the three-way key. Now, this is actually Arnie Lang. I love Arnie Lang. I love Arnie Lang. I miss him so much.
Rest in peace,
Miss him
Arnie
so
Lang.
much. Rest in peace, Arnie Lang. So this is a prototype that he gave me. This is what makes these drums so special. It's a three-way key, okay? So I marked it because, anyway, so you know. So this is 1, so that means you can tune the top, okay? Then 2, you can tune the bottom, and then 3, you can tune both at the same time. Now,
Put it on this lug.
put it on this lug?
In the camera. There you
Great. So Billy Gladstone, if you don't know, was just a phenomenal drummer. He was the drummer percussionist at Radio City Music Hall for many, many years. And Buddy Rich said that Billy Gladstone has the greatest drum roll, and he really did. So Billy was a true showman, and it's actually in the book Catcher in the Rye. He would be in the pit, and then Billy Gladstone would rise to the stage playing his snare drum. And if he wanted it, also got to realize back in the 50s and 60s, he was probably using calfskin heads. So he didn't want to turn the drum over and tune it. So with this key, he could tune the top head, he could tune the bottom head, he could tune both at the same time. So it was very, very revolutionary. It also, this is the throw off, which you could just kick it off like that. And it has a muffler that is just unbelievable. Try and get a shot of this, Jim. So, you see, this is the gauge for the muffler. Look at this, Jim. So, you see how it goes from all the way off to all the way on, and all these increments. I mean, it's just beyond. I mean, this was designed in the 1930s. Sorry to say, it didn't sell too well, and they kind of stopped production during World War II, and then when they started making drums again, Gretsch was like, you know, these drums are just too expensive. Nobody's buying them. Billy, good luck. So Billy, in the late 40s, started making his own. They were frightfully expensive. Like the most expensive, like a Ludwig snare drum, let's say for argument's sake, was $50. A Billy Gladstone would be like $150. Now this is like 60 years ago. No, more than that. Okay? So they were phenomenally expensive. Arnie, may he rest in peace, did a fantastic job making them. And this is the drum that I got from him in 2018. It's an exact replica of the drum that Billy Gladstone made for Morris Arnie Lang in 1951. Okay? So I can't stop talking about this. Any questions or anything?
Yeah, there might be questions. I'm going to check in just a moment. I mean,
Okay.
as far as... didn't you say that when you showed this to Arnie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tell that story, because...
Okay. So I went to Justin Giaccioccio's house, and we hung out. He was a teacher of mine in high school. Great guy. Justin, fantastic jazz drummer, educator, just great guy. Love him. I love that old generation, Justin, Arnie Lang. So I bought the drum, and the heads were really beat. You know, Justin took care of his drums, but the heads were beat. And by the way, I must say this, when I studied him when I was younger, I never saw this drum. He had a white pearl set of Gretsch. He had a walnut set of Gretsch, but obviously this drum was in a closet. So I bought the drum, and then I said, all I want to do is put new heads on it. So I bought new heads. I happen to love Remo, or Evans are very cool. So I called up Arnie. Arnie was the coolest guy. And I said, Arnie, I just got a Gretsch Gladstone. You did what? Look, I got a Lang. You know, I need one a Gretsch. So he goes, come on over, Dave. Come on over. So I brought my Gretsch Gladstone to Arnie Lang at his studio in Brooklyn. And we tried to put new heads on it. Now, Arnie's looking at the drum, and he's getting all pissed off. I don't know how you do this. Let me explain something. The Billy Gladstone, Lang Gladstones, you can tune it from the top or the bottom. Okay, so you could separately tune the bottom or the top. It's way more adjustable. Billy Gladstone made some huge improvements over the Gretsch Gladstone. If you don't have this drum key, you're in trouble, because this is the only way you can tune. Now, obviously, I have it. It comes on the drum,
Yeah, show the original.
So this is the original on the drum. It's very, very cool because you could spin it off and you could spin it on, but it's still very, very, very difficult to change the heads. So make a long story short, so I'm hanging out with Arnie, and I used to hang out with Arnie a lot, and he was getting really frustrated. Dave, I don't know what to do. I can't change the heads. It's just going right. I got to get to Manhattan. You got to put me on the subway. He was like, Arnie, I'm so sorry. I love you. I'm so sorry I upset you. Dave, I got to get back. So I brought him to the train station. I said, Arnie, thank you. I'll talk to you soon. So I don't know if he's watching, but my dear friend Ed Rawlik, I'll call him up, and Ed, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just hanging out. I'm like, could I come over? I'll buy you dinner. Could you help me put my heads on my Gretsch Gladstone? Because I completely freaked out Arnie. You freaked out Arnie Lang? I'm like, yeah, it wasn't good. Yeah, come on over. Dave, buy me dinner. I'll help you set up the drum. So I went to see my good friend Ed, who lives 5 minutes away from me in Brooklyn. We had a nice dinner. And then it took us about 2 or 3 hours, but we did take apart the Gretsch Gladstone, and we put a new head on the top and the new head on the bottom. I hope I don't have to do that again for a long time. It's very difficult because the bottom of the Gretsch Gladstones, it's totally smooth. So changing heads is very difficult. You want me to show you? Sure.
Yeah, let's look at that.
In other words, the bottom of the Lang and the Billy Gladstone has a slot. Okay? Like the old Sonors. Remember Sonar drums used to have a slot? So you could use a screwdriver, not the Gretsch Gladstones. Another thing that's really weird, you can see this, is that, is the muffler is really wild. You see there's like a cable set up inside the drum, and it's just completely wild. The lugs also have a split tension rod. So, I mean, it was a great design, but there were some problems with it. When Billy Gladstone took the drum back from Gretsch, he did make some improvements. Sorry to say he didn't make a lot of drums. I'm sure I don't know how many snare drums Arnie Lang made, but he definitely made way more than 50. I'm sure he made hundreds of them because he's been making for years and years. So that's my story with Arnie Lang and freaking him out.
So how much do you think that drum is worth?
This drum, not to take it the wrong way, but I could sell it in a heartbeat for $3,000.
Wow.
Because it's totally mint original, and that's what they go for. You know what I mean? It's kind of like at this point in time, first of all, this is really cool. So there's so many, as you could see, I could be here all night talking about these things. The drums are numbered. Back then in time, there it is. Okay, this is number 256. As in, there's less than 300 in the entire world ever made. This drum, I don't know if you can see that, Jim, but it's number 256. You see right there?
Yeah.
So, as my friend Ed said, buy it.
I think it says in there, Stanton Moore wants this drum. By the way, Stanton Moore's hanging with us tonight.
Oh, great.
Good to see you, Stanton.
Stanton, I love you.
Thanks for hanging with us. We got Dave Clive in the studio and Pat Ross on deck. And we have some great folks hanging with us tonight. So it's great to see Stanton in here. And by the way, I just wanted to mention from before, David Garibaldi said he still has all of his cables. That's an inside joke. But yeah, man. Yeah, Stanton said, I'll take it. Steve Balgoyan's hanging with us tonight also. And Adoti is hanging with us tonight. And John Gill said, have you visited the Northrop Drum Museum in Oneonta, New York? Great collection of vintage drums there.
Yeah, that's definitely awesome. Since Stanton is there, I really, it was pre-pandemic. Stanton was at the Brooklyn Bowl with Garage Etoile, and I wanted to take him to Arnie's studio so much, but Stanton's flight was delayed. Arnie was getting sickly, so it didn't happen. But you can have this when I go, Stanton.
It's in Dave's will to you, Stanton.
Well, along with my progressive jazz kit, my Max
where are you going, David?
Heaven.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Yeah, my wife, it's going to be sooner than later.
Drum heaven. Yeah, exactly. By the way, Vincent LaRussa hanging with us tonight. You know my friend Vincent. And he said he loves snare drums and he loves his Gretsch Brooklyn kit.
Oh, yeah.
He has like a black diamond Gretsch Brooklyn kit. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Nice drum set. Very nice. Okay, so So between these two drums, well, one other thing I want to mention is if you look at the cover of Ted Reed,
Oh yeah.
there's a Gladstone snare stand.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That Ted's using. Is that a Gladstone snare drum?
Yes.
And snare stand, right?
Billy Gladstone.
The fluted Billy Gladstone snare stand on the cover of Ted Reed Syncopation. So check that out.
That could be the drum that Billy Gladstone. There was a couple of them. He had a house drum at Radio City, and then of course he had his own. But that's definitely the drum. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
By the way, Anthony Casina said, Dave, do you know if Arnie's replicas are still available anywhere?
Sorry to say, well, Brian Wilson is a great guy. He's a friend of mine. He was selling them off, and another guy, I don't want to mention his name, is selling everything off. But there were only, he had stock in shells, but as far as assembled drums, no. His wife is a really nice person, but she's basically selling everything. So thank God my wife knows a lot, because when I go, she's going to sell everything for top dollar.
That's right.
Except to Stanton.
You do have a list for her, right?
I do.
Of everything you own with values. And yeah. All right. So what do you have up next for us, Dave?
Well, I have so many. I did send you a slide because basically I have a Gretsch kit from like every generation, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Okay.
By the way, my 50s kit, which was basically 2 sets, I put it together as a double bass kit, was Drum Kit of the Month, February 2019.
I'll show the slides quick, and then you know what we should do? Let's save one for sort of the end, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Pat in for a little while.
Okay.
We'll see some of Pat's stuff, and then I'm going to bring you guys in together at some point, and we're going to talk about a few things. But you have still 2 drums to kind of show?
Sure.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, let's go chronologically.
Well, let me pull up the slides real quick, because you were just mentioning about your
There we go.
about, so there's the 1935 kit, right?
Correct. So that's what separates me from most. Paul Cooper. There's a number of guys, Chet Falzerano, who have complete drum sets that old. But back in the 30s, this is a big difference. Back then, believe it or not, inside the drums, the shells are bird's eye maple. I mean, the quality, stuff like bird's eye maple wasn't super expensive in the 1930s, so they could use, that's this drum. They could use the highest quality materials, and it wasn't frightfully expensive. That's not true today. You know, there's the 3-way.
That's a 3-way key we were chatting about, right?
Right, that's it. That's the double bass kit. So that was Drum Kit of the Month, February 2019.
Have you taken that out on any gigs?
I used to play in a 50s band, and yes. So the core of the set, the 13, 16, 22, yes. We had like an oldie show, and I brought that kit out. I have pictures of me in a tuxedo. But, a 4-piece kit, definitely not. That has every size Gretsch made in it.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, yes, as far as gigging, there we go. Great. Can we stop there for a minute?
Yeah.
So that's my 1961 Gretsch kit. This is the snare drum to that kit. Now, my dear friend Pat had asked me about, do I have the Max Roach badge? I don't. Those are extremely rare. So when the Gretsch started making the Max Roach snare drums originally, they did have post lugs, like on the Lang and the Gretsch Gladstone. Then they started making, this is exactly like my Stanton Moore, a Gretsch signature snare drum has the same lugs. So it's the same lug, it's just shorter. So this is the progressive jazz snare drum. I love it. It does have the infamous micro-sensitive throw-off. This is an awesome feature. They have, keep on going, Dave. Here's the snap-in key holder. Gotta have it. So I just love this drum set. I have used this.
Can we hear that drum?
Sure you can.
Wait, let me mute your, hold on. Let me mute your voice mic 1 second. All right, go ahead.
So actually I tuned them up because I want to be prepared for this great show with Jimmy tonight.
Hold on. All right.
6.5, 5.5, 4 by 14.
Nice. By the way, Ray Rapone's hanging with us tonight.
Great.
What's up, Ray?
Ray?
Sweet.
I've known Ray longer than I know this guy.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a long time. But I can't say.
How many years old are you now, David? 102, I think, right?
Wow.
That's really uncalled for, Pat.
I'm sorry. He knows everybody from everywhere.
Ray, I love Ray, but he hates when I say how long we've been friends. So it was less than 30 years. Less than 30 years.
All right,
I got a program with this guy. I love this guy. I'm so proud of Jimmy Toscano. I'm so proud. I've had many, many, many drum students in my life. After I graduated Manhattan School of Music, sorry, Jim, I got to do this. After I graduated Manhattan School of Music with my master's degree in drums and percussion, it's the truth, my first job was teaching drums and percussion and rudiments of music at Kingsborough College. This man was one of my first drum students, and that's how we met.
That percussion ensemble was so fun.
It was. And happy, very happy to say we are still friends today. And I wish all of my drum students the greatest success in the world, but I truly want to be your friends. And this guy was a great student of mine years ago, and we're friends. Just like Stanton Moore today and Johnny V. They're both awesome drummers. I love them, but they're friends. You know what I mean? And it's really nice when a student, after he studies with you, is a friend of yours. Like Arnie Lang. Morris Arnie Lang was one of the coolest cats, and you could hang with him. And that's kind of the difference between him and a lot of other teachers. When I left Manhattan School of Music, it was like, bye, Dave. Good luck. I won't say anything. But one of my teachers at Manhattan School of Music
Send us a postcard.
Well, Dave, good luck with your career. I hope you can put the puzzle together. And I was like, what does that mean? I hope you can make a living in the music business. But Arnie was one of those guys that we hung out years and years later.
Right.
You know?
Awesome. Let me go to the next slide while we're there.
Here she is.
So beautiful.
Oh, wow. Here's the book. Wow, we can do it a reenactment right now.
There it is. Love it. Actually, I mean, because on camera we can't really see how pretty that green color is, and it's we can see it in the slide. So
is Kevin Lehman watching?
Kevin Lehman's here. Yeah.
All right, Kevin, I love you. Here we go.
Kevin, are you paying attention?
Where we go? Here we go. I gave Kevin ribbon, rondinette ribbon in green. So can you see that? It's a beautiful Cadillac green.
Oh my God.
Now, in my defense, I do have a Gretsch kit in Cadillac green. It's a jazz kit. Same snare drum.
Is it in the Stax picture?
It's in there somewhere, but
let me see.
You know, I'm so lucky I have this drum. I mean, I never thought. Well, yeah, obviously everybody eventually passes, but I'm so glad that I hung with Arnie Lang. When Ray Rapone had the Drummers Workshop, Ray had Arnie come in and do a master class, and we did performances at Brooklyn College. It was just a great period of time. We're living in strange times right now, but anyway.
Ray Rapone said, "Hi guys, why did the Radio King cross the road?"
I don't know.
Tell us, Ray. And by the way, Kevin Lehman said, "Why am I afraid?"
Why are you afraid?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dave and Pat, Michelle is watching too and says hi. Oh, Michelle is watching as well.
Yeah, that's Kevin's wife.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he wrote
and
Michelle
awesome photographer. Sorry.
Watching too. But okay, I got it. He just corrected. Nice. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. If everybody's cool with this, let's bring up Pat for a little bit. We're gonna have Pat show some drums.
Sure.
And we're gonna give Dave a little break. Oh, to get to Slingerland.
But that's in upstate New York.
Oh my God.
The Slingerlands.
I love that, Ray. That's very funny.
Yeah, that's cute.
All right, so with no further ado, let's bring in Pat. So first of all, let's bring in the three of us for a moment here.
Sure.
Pat Ross from Erie, Pennsylvania. How you doing?
He always says it that way. Even when I'm taking a lesson, I'm like, "Hi, Jim, Pat Ross."
I'm always excited to see it.
Scares me sometimes. It's like
that's true.
Yes. Okay.
Every time you come on camera, I do that same thing. You're right.
You sure do, right. And I appreciate that. That's good. It's like.
By the way, you're wearing that round badge shirt. Very cool.
Yes, I am. There
and
it is.
Mr.
There's
Clive.
something on the back too, or something.
Yeah. Well,
Mr.
you got your
Clive
back
is-
on the front. I got mine on the back.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh, I
that-
see. There you go.
Nice. Oh my God, this is Gretsch Nerd Fest. Woo!
Yes, indeed.
Something like that. That's okay. When you go back to David and then you come back to me, I have a wardrobe change.
Oh,
I've already
awesome.
got it planned out. So see, that'll work too.
Okay. So Pat,
Yeah.
so you got a lot of drums going on in there.
Let me get out of the way here for a second so people can see that.
And as far as by the way, as I said earlier, your display looks really cool.
Thank you.
There's a lot of fun stuff in there. I see some Slingerlands that
You sure do.
I see a Premiere in there, don't I?
I got a Premiere. Yep.
Some
And then I got
Gretches.
some Ludwigs,
I see a Rogers up on top. I think top left
a top left and top right.
and top right. Sweet.
The two tops.
I see my book on your bookshelf.
No, there it is. That's actually the second copy. That's the one that I got from. I think I won it from you one week.
Oh, you
were
won it.
giving the book away.
Oh, cool. But
And
I
you
signed one to you.
autographed it. Yeah. So I don't touch that one. I have another one that's like all taped together. That's the one I use because it's
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Pat. Well, you're on.
Yeah, my
and I kn-
story's a little bit different than David's, but I was really surprised. And again, every time I talk to you and talk to David, I learn all kinds of things about this kind of three-way connectivity between all of us, which is great. I was 12 years old also. Apparently, that's like the good age number for maybe in our era for students to start drum set. And I come from kind of a fortunate musical family on my mom's side, where there were two drummers. Nobody was full-time. A trumpet player. My mom sang, at weddings and things like that, and, did cantering at church and stuff. And so that was kind of where that influence came from. And I was lucky enough that my uncle had bought a new kit for himself. And most of the two uncles that played drums basically just were weekend warriors. They played like we do, gigs on Fridays and Saturdays. And during the week, they had full-time jobs because that's what you got to have. And so I think he was hoping that maybe one or two of his kids would play. And he put the Gretches in the attic and he bought a set of Slingerland red sparkles. And then the connection that I have between him and my teacher, Bob Falkowitz, is that they both went to school together, played in band, did all the district band, regional bands, and used to travel to Cleveland by train on Saturdays to study with Charles Wilcoxon, who had an office on like the 32nd floor of some huge building down there. So that was kind of a neat connection. So one uncle provided me with the drum set. The other friend of his provided me with one-on-one lessons, learning with that whole Wilcoxon thing having been passed down.
By the way, not to interrupt, but Monday
Sure.
last week, when I had Sperry Karras on, he's probably the last living student of Charlie Wilcoxon.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch that yet, but
Yeah,
that's on my to-do list
He
for
told
this
some.
week.
He told some great stories, and I think I mentioned Kevin Lehman that night that I wanted Kevin to check it out. But he said that when he showed up for his first lesson, Wilcoxon told him to play one of the solos.
Yeah, that's great.
And he went, okay, stop. And he's like, go out, see my wife on the way out, buy a metronome, go home and practice that piece until you can play with a metronome, and then come back. Like 5 minutes into the lesson, he threw him out. He still had to pay for the lesson, and he had to buy a metronome.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
My
good.
uncle said that outside of he had an office, and then that led into a teaching area that he taught in,
Right.
which was kind of like a library. In the hallway of the building was a bench that he had out there. And, that's where the students would either get shipped back out to or wait for the lesson.
Exactly.
And, So that
Nice.
was my first connectivity with any kind of piece of equipment. And you have a slide to show, actually, a couple slides that kind of start off with the front cover of the 1971 Gretsch catalog.
Nice.
And there it is.
So the Gretsch catalog, that great Gretsch sound. What year is that from?
That's 1971.
Wow, nice.
That catalog is currently 50 years, 51 years old, because we just rolled into
I'll give you $5 for it.
No.
I'll give you $6 for it.
They're selling for $25 and $30 on the internet, man. Come on, you got to do better.
I'll give you $11 for it.
$35.
No, I can't sell this one, and the
40.
reason why
Dave Clive said 40.
40. 45.
Okay, it's not for sale.
50.
Don't worry,
David, you probably already have a copy of this.
I have 2.
See? Yeah, and you want to buy mine. This was the catalog that I had under my pillow for probably. No, I'm serious.
So am I.
Yeah, for probably all of my 12-year-old and 13-year-old, time frame of my life. It was just like, wow, look at all those colors. Wow, look at all those drums. And I've got one of those. It took me a little while to figure it out. I went to the music store in town, and they didn't even have the kits in stock. They had to order them. But if you go to the next slide, I think that's my kit.
Nice. Very, very cool. And actually, there's a close-up in the next slide, right?
Correct. Yeah. That's called the name band.
That's the hi-hat stand.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I said to Guy at Manny's. What did I know?
It's a really neat. Yeah. It has this kind of wide pedal foot thing that says Gretsch on it.
Yeah.
And actually, haven't they reintroduced like a vintage hardware line?
Yeah. Yes, they have, but it doesn't look like that. Yes, you're right. Gibraltar is doing a good thing. Not to side, but Gretsch was the last company to continue to use the rail consulate of all the drum companies.
Got it.
Gretsch was way ahead of their time, and then they kind of got stuck.
Yeah, and in fact, there was a posting on the Gretsch. You have different Facebook groups, and there's a Gretsch group that I learned something last week. There was a gentleman who said that the rail mount had been removed, and somebody had plugged the holes with wood dowels, which is the process, and then you sand them. And then he was asking about what can I do to blend this, and I looked at it and I was really confused because he had 4 holes, and for all of the rail mounts that I've dealt with, including this set, and like Dave said, I get the thing home, and then I take it all apart. And my mom's like, ah! And my dad's like, you better get every bolt, nut, and screw and washer put back together. I said, I will. I got them all mapped out, and I think that was part of the understanding how the snare strainer worked and how the snares worked and how the arm, held the tom with the tongue thing. It was really neat. So in the background here, this is not, and somebody asked me a couple days ago on the internet, do you still have like your first drum set, etc.? And yes, I do. But I don't have the snare drum that goes with it because when I got a better snare, I sold it to a friend of mine. But the Blue Sparkle that I'll grab here, this is, David, you know your numbers, right? Is this a 4157?
It's a wood shell? I think so, yeah.
It's a wood shell.
Is it dated? Is it dated? Because
no, what happened was the gentleman that I bought it from, someone had painted the inside of the drum shell black and had removed the label.
Very bad.
I know.
That's not nice.
And I know you'd be upset about that, but I did make sure that it had the round badge from Gretsch, and it has the drum key holder.
Oh, cool.
I thought this was like, just the cat's pajamas, man. When I saw this and I thought, oh, you don't have to put that in your pocket, and then like your mom yells at you because it's going around in the washing machine and she doesn't know what's happening, etc. This drum actually came to me in, I got to get the finishes right or David's going to make fun of me on the
Show us the
internet
badge. Let me see the badge.
Oh, sure, yeah. That's the badge.
Blue sparkle, my friend.
Also, show me the throw-off switch.
Yeah, did you see that? This is how the guy
saw that.
sent it, and this is my favorite throw-off. This is a Ludwig throw-off. It's a P85, and it's smooth as silk.
Yeah.
It works nice, and since the guy had already mounted it, what I did was I needed a drum to go with a 1964 set that I bought, and it didn't come with the snare drum I wanted. It came with a 1965 Ludwig Superphonic 400. Well, I already have a 76, so I actually detailed that drum, and I surprised Big Stan and gave it to him for a Christmas present. Because once you've got one Superphonic 400, you don't need a whole rack of Superphonic 400s. So this drum came in, and the color that it was black pearl, and I needed it to be blue, and I kept looking for a blue sparkle when I couldn't find it. So I got a hold of the Precision Drum people, and I said, hey, boys, I need to make a blue drum. And so they sent it to me. So I actually completely stripped the drum down. And that's one of the other things I like about collecting is when I get a piece, it has to go through the Pat Ross process, which is complete disassemblage.
Frankensteining it.
Yeah, and fully cleaned, and the lugs polished, and things replaced in string and stuff, and then it becomes mine.
So more or less, I mean, your main concern is playability too. I mean, being able to take it out on a gig and play it. So it's not gonna just sit on the
definitely.
shelf.
And my point was, I for this drum set, and that'll be another story because I'm like. David said, I thought you're going to, what about that Roger set that I sold you? I'm like, I'm not doing sets tonight, Dave. I'm doing snare drums.
That's because I sold you that set.
I know you did.
By the
I
way,
drove all the way to New York City to get it.
I just want to mention that Vincent LaRusso, who's in here before, or who may still be in here, he's got like 75 snare drums.
Really?
But not not super rare, but he bought like all the stuff that everybody wants. Like one of each. He's got like a Craviato, a Dunnett, all these different drums that are really nice
because
drums.
he's got a really good job, Dave.
He's got extra income.
What does he do for a living?
He does tech stuff.
Oh, okay.
And he plays music, so his day gig feeds his night gig. Sounds good.
And I've always loved the die-cast rim. David brought those up before. Like you said, they're built. Gretsch drums from these eras were built like a tank, and boy, you can get a nice cross-stick sound. So my drum kit was Midnight Blue Pearl, the one that I originally got from my uncle, and it's gone through several color changes, and I don't have a picture of it because we're not talking about drum sets tonight. We're talking about snares.
Right.
So this is the closest I could show you, and it's the only drum that I actually sold. Everything else that I bought, cymbals, cowbells, unless they fell apart or broke, I have them.
Got it.
I just couldn't see not having once, and maybe David can relate to this too. Once you've got drums that you're really fond of, then you get kind of attached to them, and it's just it's like an arsenal thing. And the page you have up right now, Jim, is the picture at the very bottom is the second snare drum I have here, and so in my case, instead of looking for rare pieces, and that's, David had, I think, a little bit of a larger ability in connectivity, being in New York City and being in Brooklyn, to have those kind of things come past him. It's not that I haven't seen them, but what I started to do was take a look at these catalogs I had when I was 12 and 13 and say to myself,
Put yourself back on camera, Pat. We're staring at your shoe.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Well, I wanted to show you the snare drum. Okay. I'm not much to look at, you know.
I'd still rather see your nice face than your shoe.
Okay, well, David will tell you. He's not much to look at, but I put up with it.
Pat, you're 100% right, but things have radically changed because when I was in high school,
Yeah.
and when I was in college, you could find Gretsch, Ludwig, Slingerland, Rogers everywhere. It's not that way anymore. It's definitely not that way. Pat and I were laughing because some guy from Brooklyn is selling a red sparkle set of Gretsch just like my Max Roach kit in Black Diamond Pearl for $11,000. Now that's asking price. I don't think he's going to get that. But back in the day, they were everywhere. That's not the case anymore. And sorry to say, the internet has made things way more expensive.
Yeah.
You know, and they're just not available unless you just look out and happen to find them at a garage sale but it's not like it was back in the day.
Correct.
$11,000. Who's going to spend $11,000? I guess somebody with way too much money and they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, the thing I've always told David is if you have proof that Philly Joe Jones or Elvin Jones or, any of these guys, Tony Williams, owned that set, played that set, whatever, then that would justify, the fact that it would be worth that because it's almost a museum kind of a piece. But if it's just, I bought this kit and I held on to it and it's in really nice shape and now I want to get all kinds of money out of it, it's like, I don't know. Yeah. So my adventure into the world of collecting started with this guy right here. This is a 1976 blue olive or BO badge Ludwig Superphonic 400. And I was really tickled when I got it because when I got to the house and I saw the case, and I thought to myself, oh, it's going to be an acrylite. And I don't mind acrylites. In fact, I've got one and, reading about Roger Hawkins and a bunch of people that played in studio settings, many times they would switch out whatever drum they had for the acrylite, and it just was the, the one that they needed for the recording. So still have the case. It came with the rubber practice pad.
Awesome.
All right. Isn't this a Gladstone pad?
Yes, Gladstone designed it.
There's a
does it say Ludwig on it or Billy Gladstone?
No, I have another one that has like engraving and it says Ludwig and stuff. The one that he had was just kind of a plain Jane one. Yeah. But, that was cool. The stand that I have here is not the original stand, but I wanted to put it on one high enough that everybody could see it. Yeah. This drum became like my go-to drum for probably like 10 years from the time I was 12 until I was about 22. I was looking at some pictures today. Here's me at 21. I know people may have seen this one before because I had it up on the internet. Moon. And everybody's, and David's got all his friends convinced I look like Keith Moon in the picture. Maybe I do. He didn't have a mustache, though. But if you look closely, you'll notice that even though I'm playing it's a 13, 14, 22 by 16, and the floor tom's hiding over there. There's my Ludwig Superphonic 400.
Yep.
Right there. Well, so this
on
played...
my Big Tama kit behind there, I have a Ludwig Superphonic right there. But it's a Keystone badge. It's early 60s Keystone badge. Same drum.
Right, and that was the one that I had put together for Stan because I said, everybody should have at least one Superphonic 400 in their collection. So I played big band jazz with this, with my college jazz band and a band in Erie. I played rock gigs. I played polka gigs. I mean, you name it. And it worked out just super. And it's not even a COB. I was telling David, I said it's the lug alloy or lud alloy. But when I did some research like David was doing, I found out that John Bonham's main snare drum was a 6.5 by 14 of this model.
Oh, yeah.
And it was not a chrome drum. Basically what this is an aluminum drum that's chrome plated.
Right.
Let me hear it.
That's how that works. And then that would be, that's kind of like my snare sound, and I get, people go, oh, it sounds so muffled. And so I'll open it up for those of you that are open snare fans. This is, if I was playing a jazz gig, yeah. And one thing I like about it is it never kind of stops being a snare drum, and that's why I was doing that stroke bounce, kind of a drop out. The sensitivity on this is really cool. The original ones came with only a 12-strand snare strainer on the bottom. I am a fan of both the 42s and also the 20s. So.
By the way, Pat, Z3 Concepts Incorporated, is that Stan?
Yeah. That's Stan.
Yeah. Stan says, thank you, Pat, for the awesome sounding Ludwig. And Anthony Cucina said, Pat, do you prefer the 6 or the 5-inch on the Ludwig?
I am not a 6.5 by 14. In fact, if you look at the whole collection I have out here, and I've played all of these on various gigs, I'm a fan of the 5 and the 5.5.
Yeah.
I think it's most versatile for the kind. I mean, if I was playing coliseums and I was playing like football stadiums or something, yeah. The only drum I ever did play, and I've got that in the background, is my 1932 Ludwig Super. So yeah, I prefer the smaller one. It kind of does what it's supposed to. It's easy to position. The deeper drum, you got to kind of set it up a little bit higher. The stand sometimes doesn't go down as far as you need it to. But, yeah, just a wonderful drum. I mean, I never had a problem, with it. And, again, for it to be that versatile, it's like I'm playing a jazz gig at school, and then I got a like a pop rock gig that night. It's like, this is the snare.
Oh, nice.
So that's kind of the reason why I let the other one go that I had, because I really didn't think that it was, adequate for speaking. And also, I've become a 10-lug fan on snare drums, because I really think that it just gives you the opportunity to have the most balanced tuning. I don't mind an 8-lug drum, but I just find that the 10 lugs tune and seem to work better.
Yeah, like my Tama Star Classic, that's 10 lugs.
Yeah.
That brushed nickel, but it's 6.5 by 14, which I have some 6.5 by 14 drums, but I like that one a lot. And it's basically,
I'll bring that Ludwig down and show it to you.
That's just a rip-off of a Gretsch snare drum.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Totally. I know you can't see that drum I'm talking about, but
yeah. So this is what happens. Like I said, when I tell people that drums follow me home. This is the oldest piece I have. I'll try to see if the camera will pick this up. On the bottom rim, it's engraved, and it says Super Ludwig.
Wow.
I'm not sure if
Super
you can make
Ludwig.
that out.
Yeah, I can kind of see it. If you back it up a little bit, I will.
Okay, sure.
See it. Back it up a little more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we can
and
see
then above that,
Pat.
the Ludwig logo is just embossed into the shell.
Oh yeah. Cool.
And this is a 6.5 by 14. It's a brass shell. How do you know, Pat? Because in certain spots where the chrome is coming off, it's gold colored.
Got it.
And it's not
actually,
rust.
I mean, on camera, it looks deeper than 6.5, actually.
Could be
Yeah,
7.
I think it's because it has those the way the
7.
rim is set up with the with the claws and stuff. It might be 7. I don't know. I never really measured it. I wasn't sure if in 1932 if they were doing specific sizing when it comes to the metal stuff.
How's it sound?
It sounds good. Here's the open sound on it. You could tune it high or low. So it has a nice bark to it.
Yeah.
It was, I did use it for a while in a rock style setting.
Is that rare?
Yeah, that's not the
Kind of
right
a rare
throw
drum,
off.
right? That's not
This
the-
one, I guess so. The gentleman that came to see me, him and his wife, I had my drum shop called Let There Be Drums at the time, and he came in to see me. He had a Ludwig bass drum with the calfskin heads on both sides, has the light bulb inside, a blue one and a red one,
Right.
and it had the like lake,
Yeah,
the mountains in the back.
yeah.
And apparently the light bulbs were not only decorative because the water would look blue and then the red would come on and it would look like a sunrise or sunset, but apparently the light bulbs produced enough heat to keep the calfskin heads from getting mushy. And so it was, so he had that. I have a low boy, just exactly the same one that David showed you. It has a bass drum pedal from Ludwig that I have. Very simplistic concept. The gentleman said he was a student at the University of Colorado during like the 30s, and he played the drum kit. It had the clamp on it where you had the cowbell and the wood block. I'm trying to think what else. No toms.
No Chinese tom-tom?
No Chinese tom-tom. Nope.
I played with Vince Giordano. That was the kit that I played on. It had the light bulbs in it and the calf heads and the.
Yeah, it's really cool. So he said him and his wife were selling their home. He was in his 70s, and so was she, and they were going to move into a an apartment kind of a situation where, and he said, I'd just like to see this go to somebody that would appreciate it. And I believe I bought. There was a trap case with the stands, the bass drum pedal, the cymbals, and all the various mounting equipment and stuff for $200. He was more than happy with that. And I asked him, I said, what do you want to get out of this? Because I never want to take advantage of anybody, from that standpoint. I did sell the bass drum to a collector in, of all places, Utah.
Oh.
And apparently I put it up on eBay, and he was the first one to hit and said, I've got several of these and I just want to keep the collections going. And nice. So that was really neat. So this is my, like what David has in some of those, once in a lifetime kind of situations. At the time, I was playing in a band called Endless Summer. We did Beatles, Beach Boys, Stones, best of the 60s kind of a thing. I had the first clinic for the drum shop, and I brought in Mark Drew Bay from Survivor, came in from Chicago. And I invited Mark to my gig that night because we did it on a Saturday and I had a gig. He said, yeah, sure, I'm here for the weekend and then I'm going to fly back out. And he played the drum, and he after he sat in, he caught me on the next break. He said, Pat, I'll give you $500 cash for it right now. And I'm like, I just got it out. This is like my second night of actually playing, and I just didn't want to sell it. But, obviously he really liked the way it sounded, and, he was interested in it. So this is my oldest piece. And, it's, I didn't keep it, the same. I put a P85 strainer. It had some kind of really bizarre throw-off system, and it had like gut snares that were wrapped in wire, and those were all twisted and, kind of, and I thought, well, I really like to just play the drum. So, again, my go-to is always the P85. I guess they call it something else now, or they've upgraded it. And the what is this, David, P37?
Oh, wow, the butt plate. That looks original. Oh.
No, I put that on.
Oh, you put that on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can see
whatever that number. I mean, see that there's actually there's a piece that attaches to the rim that kind of protects the snares there. But yeah, whatever that is, P38, P36, 37, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's cool that you make it playable and then you use it. That's pretty cool. I'll give you $50 for it.
I didn't keep it. Again, it wasn't because I was going to try to sell it at some point in time or whatever.
Yeah.
So let's see. Next on the.
By the way, there's one question.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Anthony Cusina said, Pat, what's your opinion on the chrome shell versus the Black Beauty?
On the 400, I've never owned or played a Black Beauty. I've only seen them in magazines, and David said, "Oh, I've got one of those."
Right here.
Right here. Hold on.
Right here. Yeah. David needs to hold that up because all I can see is the drum head. He needs to show the beauty of the engraving and.
Check this out, kiddies.
Pat,
Yeah.
this is this is a little bit older than yours, but it's
Okay.
got the same badge.
It does.
Now, this is definitely a brass drum. Now, the thing is,
definitely.
what I really like about these is the engraving. Very happy to say I was just in touch with John Aldridge, who was definitely engraving for Ludwig and engraves his own drums right now.
Oh, that is beautiful. Yeah. And I think that's David made a point. We were talking a couple weeks ago. And actually, we were talking in New Orleans, and David said, I really don't consider a drum a Black Beauty if it isn't engraved. And they have them unengraved. I'm not, and now they've got a Black Shadow or some kind of. I think Ludwig has some other title that
Black Magic.
The Black Magic.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that they've expanded that out. But I really think that, I agree with Dave on that point, that if it's going to be a Black Beauty, it should have that engraving.
That's
in
all hand engraved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane.
The new ones, the inexpensive ones, the Black Magics are computer engraved.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right. That's the difference. John Aldridge, and back in the day, they're totally hand done.
He did them hand. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to see the Cheap Trick drummers,
Oh yeah, Bunny Carlos.
Bunny Carlos's collection, he's got like one Black Beauty in every era. He's got like this entire storage room where he walks and he just kind of takes you through the years. I think he's selling a few of those off.
Wow.
So so the Ludwig came along. I let the Gretsch snare go. I opened my shop, and the acrylites and things kind of started, filtering in.
Nice.
And the Premier drum is really a neat drum. It's like a super sensitive Ludwig. I believe this is the 2000 model, and it's got this whole bar system inside, and that's why I kind of wanted to talk about it tonight. So it's like a super sensitive. When you throw the strainer off, you don't release the tension on the snares, and there's this whole mechanism inside with this kind of a plastic box and some like a truss rod and then a straight rod inside. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's very much like where Dynasonic went, and even now I think you can buy snares that are already mounted in like an aluminum frame.
Yeah,
and so you're basically
Like Rogers.
Yeah.
right, exactly. So this was a neat drum. The kit that you guys saw and laughed about, David, because I look like Keith Moon. I don't think so, but okay. This is the snare drum that came with that kit. I played that.
Back that picture up. You're blinding me.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, much better.
Okay. This was the kit that I played in Endless Summer. This is a gig that we did, and that would have been post-college. So I believe I'm 21 or 22 in the photograph. The kit was from the 80s, and I liked the snare drum, but it seemed like it was a little bit more for percussion kind of. as opposed to, and again, when I put it up against, the 400, it was like, it wasn't bad. But it just, I liked the 400. I fell in love with it. So I thought, well, don't get rid of it. And I actually, for probably a good 10, 12 years that I taught, this was the snare drum that students were playing next to me at the kit when they came in and I was playing, my kit that I had at the teaching studio. So that's my premier story. I like their hardware. Their drums are nice. My drums are birch, and they're, I think, 4-ply birch, and then they've got reinforcing rings top and bottom, but they're trimmed. There was one version called the Resonator, and then there was another title. I think Neil Peart played around with the Resonators for a while, and he said, I find them to be anything but resonant. was his statement. He didn't go with them, but he thought, and the Resonator was a cool idea. They put the re-rings top and bottom, and they would take another piece of shell material and they would bend it and they would put it in the drum and it would expand so you couldn't see the lugs when you looked inside. It was like a chamber, between, and I wasn't sure, but this was called the Projector series, the one that I have, which is maple. The drum sizes were strange too. It came with a 13 and a 14 tom, and usually you'd think you'd have an 18 floor and a 24-inch kick, but it was a 22-inch kick and a 16 by 16 floor with those bigger toms, and I never quite understood why the Brits did that, but they make good stuff. So that's that one, and I like it. I like it because it kind of reminds me of the Ludwig Super Sensitive, where there's a mechanism inside that kind of works from there.
Got it. Very cool.
This is this is another piece that I got. We're going to swing into Slingerland for a second, and this may not look familiar. But when I discovered what it was, and I realized that it's the same snare drum that Neil Peart played from the time he joined the band all the way up to, I believe, the Counterparts album.
Oh, man.
And this is an artist. This is a Slingerland artist. It's got the re-rings in it. No. You can see them there.
Yep.
It is a great drum, and this was the one that Neil said it would never choke on him. He bought his for $60 at some garage sale or something, and it had a copper finish, and he kept it for a while, and then I think he found somebody who could do either painting or reworking so that it would start to match. But I have the Neil Peart Rush banner, where he's floating on the log
raft,
or floating on a raft, kind of. And in the picture, I can see it from here, the snare drum is chrome, or copper. It's copper. Okay. Yeah. And again, I like it a little damper than that, but it went, and I taught on this drum. This was my snare. And
easy to find that drum or no?
It's fairly common, yeah. There's a guy who's got like 60 of them in every color.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Where does he live?
Chicago.
Who is that?
Let's go to his house.
His name is Chuck Harling.
Chuck Harling?
Just kidding.
Oh, Chuck. No, you're just kidding. Yeah, no, Chuck's a big Slingerland fan. Plus, he lives in Chicago, which...
That's why I said that.
I love the, what they call the... what do they call these, David? These are the stick-friendly...
Stick saver.
Rims. Stick saver rims, right, top and bottom.
Yep.
It's only an 8-lug drum. Kind of like what David was talking about with the numbering system on the inside. Mine says MA65. And so I don't know if that means March or May, but I know it was made in 1965. Yeah, I think this is a maple, and from what I can tell, besides the re-rings, I think in the Slingerland catalog they said it was a 3-ply. The re-ring is really big, and when you go to I just put a brand new head on this before the session, and it's like flat as a, well, it's rolled over, but it's like, really? Do we, like, I'm like David was saying, I'm used to that, the 45 or the 33 or whatever. And this is, I mean, I'm just really surprised that you can actually get a sound out of it, but it does. And again, I think it has to do with the shell material. And for Pert to use that, I mean, the first album was the other drummer, Mr. Rutsey. So it's Fly By Night, it's Caress of Steel, it's Moving Pictures, it's all these albums, and that was the snare he was using. I'm not sure how he tuned it, but when I saw that and I kind of put 2 and 2 together, I'm like, I think that's the same snare Pert uses.
Nice.
And that was back when I was listening to Rush as those albums were coming out. Nice drum though, and it mics up real well.
Beautiful.
David,
So,
did you have a question? You look like you're scratching your head over there. Or you're just kind of enjoying the show, but the TV screen is too far away from you.
No. I'm enjoying the show.
Okay.
I have something to say, but I don't want to offend you in any way.
No, you can't, David. You can't offend me. I'm your brother from another
All right, to
mother.
all my vintage collectors out there on
Yes.
Jimmy's Awesome Show, please, if you have an old vintage drum, do not put a Ludwig P85 on it. Because you greatly devalue the
Right.
drum. I've done that. When I first started collecting Gretsch, I have my gig drum. It's in my Honda right now. It's an early 60s Gretsch drum. I put a Ludwig throw off on it, finished it. It's like worth $200. It's a gig drum. I love it. But if you have a vintage drum, especially something from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and you change the throw off, the drum is no longer a valuable collectible drum. So,
Correct. And I like I told Jim about that one.
Don't get defensive.
No, I'm not getting defensive. I wanted it to be a playable thing, and I did some research, and I knew it would be a long time to find the right parts and to find the right stuff. And again, I totally understand where you're coming from.
I just learned that the hard way.
If Pat was to find all the right parts for it and then slap it back together.
The biggest thing is you don't want to change the whole pattern.
Right.
So happy to say today that a lot of the companies, like Steve Maxwell, which is a store in New York and Chicago, there are companies that make them the retro to fit the same holes.
Right.
The point
Correct.
is when you make extra holes in the drum,
Right.
you devalue the drum.
But like in other words, if you didn't do that, if you didn't change the whole pattern and you kind of changed some stuff out, made it a playable drum, and you were able to put it back with all the original, if the original holes are the only thing there, then it still can be valuable again.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
By the way, Anthony Cucina said he likes the new throw-off, the P88 AC by Ludwig.
By Ludwig, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
By the
cool.
way, back to earlier, Anthony was asking, I think he was asking you, Dave, something, and I think he's asking again about what shells were on Tony's yellow Gretsch kit.
Those are Jasper shells. Those are definitely Jasper.
And I have a question for you, David. When you say Jasper, we're not talking about the kind of wood that it is. We're talking about a manufacturing concern named Jasper that made the shells.
Yes, yeah.
So what is the makeup of a Jasper shell?
Well, it's still a 6-ply maple shell. I mean, they never, even if you go back to the 30s and the 40s, like this Gretsch Gladstone is 3-ply. It's maple, poplar, maple. And they did vary a lot, but Billy Gladstone, well, it got to be 3-ply. And then they got to 6-ply in the early 60s. But it just, Jasper, honestly, I'm not really authority on that, but it was kind of like, Gretsch said, we need someone to make our shells. Jasper got the gig. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yep.
Cindy,
and there is the similar concept, like maple, poplar.
Yeah.
Maple, poplar. So when you have Gretsch USA today, that's as close as you're gonna get in that. Or is that solid maple, like maple?
No. It's definitely not
They're
solid.
still
Definitely
using
not.
the sandwich concept, right? Because I know that Slingerland does that too.
Yeah, it's a plywood. Since the '60s, drums have been made out of plywood. So
right,
6-ply.
In fact, that's how when you watch the YouTube videos of DW, they show you how they bring out each ply and they apply the glue and stuff, and it really hasn't changed. And then now I think they're putting them in either molds that hold them in place while the glue dries, and it's either a heat process or a major cooling down process. Depending on whose company and what shell and stuff. Probably my most valuable drum that I didn't put a P85 strainer on.
Thank you,
Dave.
Pat.
Thanks for
You're
doing
welcome.
that, Pat.
No, it's a lesson that I learned. So I want you all.
Oh no, I
out there
definitely. I mean, I'm not numb to it. I try to get to the right stuff on the right thing. I think this is similar to your Elvin snare drum.
Max.
This is
Max.
this is the Gretsch 125th anniversary. I'll put that up there so they even have it stamped on the head and the bottom. And it's got the official, I think these are 24. I didn't count them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 8. No, they're 20s. Okay. It has that small footprint lug. It has the beautifully designed butt plate that's adjustable. It has the newly designed drop. I never liked the old one. This one's much nicer. This is autographed by Fred Gretsch on the inside on the label, and it says it is 63 out of 300.
Okay.
So again, this is my only that I would consider as a collectible piece. Somebody won it actually. I don't know if they went to a drum shop and won it, or if they won it in a raffle.
Can we see the badge?
Or what happened? It was a state policeman from Ohio, and he put it up for sale. And I called David right away, and we
David
discussed,
said,
the price and, what. There's a VIN number on here, and then there's a serial number stamped, and it's a special.
Yeah, I mean it's
125th. And I was asking David, he had an asking price, and I said, does this sound like it's in the ballpark? And David said, I think he's a little high. Why don't you offer?
I thought he was a
X
cop.
number?
Why was he high for?
I'm sorry. Oh. He meant on the price, Jim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was because they have. I don't know if Ohio's legal yet or not on that. But anyways, I was interested in it because I don't have a piccolo, and this to me I kind of consider this to be.
It's not really
in
a
that
piccolo
range.
though, right? What's the measurement?
I think it's either 4 or 4.5, but I think it's maybe
it's 4. It's a 4x14.
4
Technically,
by 14.
let's talk history, guys.
Okay.
Ludwig made the first piccolo. I have one in the Gretsch Museum, and it's 3x13. So Ludwig was 3x13. Gretsch 4x14.
4x14.
That was their piccolo. The Gretsch. You made me. I want to tell you. You made me a snare drum rack. This guy right here. This talented guy.
I did?
Yes.
In my living room. I wanted to take a picture of my living room. You made it when you were living at your mom's house.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's a rack.
made
Like
him a
most
snare drum
people
rack.
have a stereo rack, but I have a snare drum rack in my living room, and it's got my
I saw
4x14, 5.5, and then it's got my floor show model, 6.5x14. So in Gretsch, Gretsch didn't make a 3. They made the Max Roach.
Oh, cool.
So actually, I stand corrected then that it's a piccolo.
It's a Gretsch piccolo.
It's a Gretsch piccolo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only had one piccolo snare drum. I don't know if you remember it. I had the Buddy Rich Slingerland with the side-by-side, the white marine pearl with the side-by-side lugs.
Yeah. There's one of those for sale on Reverb right now in a black kind of a finish. But I remember seeing that. Yeah, they're like over under, but they're right next door neighbors. They also have a square one. Ludwig has a square lug, almost rectangular.
That's on the 3x13.
You come in the top and you come in the bottom. But I've never. Slingerland seemed to do a lot of that. And was that a Gretsch or a Slingerland, Jim?
Oh, the one I had was a Slingerland.
They seemed to put. They had one drum that had like 12 or 10 lugs on the top and like 6 lugs on the bottom. They were kind of messing around with that concept.
This was the same amount of lugs, top and bottom.
Okay.
They were just staggered because the drum was so small. I think it was like 3.5.
Yeah, that's what piccolos were.
3.5, and it was 6 stick saver hoops. And the original throw off was on that drum, but I sold it. I got rid of
it. Yeah, it's a great drum. It plays good. Again, it's got the die-cast hoops, so I know I'm getting really good stick click stuff.
I'll give you $50 for it.
Pardon?
I'll give you $50 for it.
No, but thanks for asking.
I'll give you $60 for it.
No, thanks for asking.
Cool.
So I actually ordered the T-shirt. I don't want to wear it because I'm not good with white and like stuff. Like I have to wear black so it doesn't show like where the barbecue sauce and the ketchup and stuff. But I did get this one to kind of go with that, and I think there's a pin I got too that says
it came in a kit.
100. David gave me the pin. 125 years of Gretsch. Thank you, Mr. Gretsch.
So, who's got the better Gretsch collection?
Oh, David, come on.
You? No. I got the question. Cindy Blackman?
Oh, God.
Or Dave Clive? God. All right, take that back.
That's a funny one. That's a funny one.
Tell the story, Dave. Dave has the story.
Well, let me just say, I love Cindy Blackman, and she is one of the greatest drummers on the planet. Very, very happy to say I saw Tony Williams many, many times when I was a teenager, and I just loved Tony. I would follow him around. Wherever Tony Williams played, I went to see him. Cindy Blackman today is the closest I think you can get to seeing Tony Williams for real. But this is kind of funny. So whenever Cindy Blackman plays, I go to see her. And the Blue Note, I saw him recently at the Cutting Room. No disrespect, Cindy. I think you're the greatest. So I'm hanging out with her after her show on the stage at the Cutting Room, and we're talking, and I'm like drooling over her set. So I'm just like, wait a second. Now, I know a lot about Gretsch drums, so let me just wait. So Cindy, that's a early 60s Gretsch Champagne Sparkle, 12, 14, 18 jazz kit. She goes, well, yes, David, but they're from the 50s. And I'm like, the 50s? And she says, yes, they're from the 50s. I'm like, oh my God, were they refinished? Resparkled? No. Refurbished? Repearled? No, they're all original. So like she obviously paid a fortune for it. So then she goes, nobody plays Gretsch drums older than I do. And I was like,
you don't say that to Dave Clive.
Cindy, I love you. You blow me away on the drums. I love you. I've seen you with Lenny Kravitz. I've seen you with Santana. I've seen you with your own band. But I got an older set. So I take out my phone, and it just so happened that very day, I took pictures of my Gretsch Broadcaster in Marine Park. And I show her the picture, and I go, Cindy, this is my Gretsch kit from 1935. And then Cindy looks at it and goes, what year are they from? And I had just said 1935. I said, Cindy, they're from 1935. She goes, I go, Cindy, no respect. Maybe. There it is. Thank you very much. That's the kit. So I said, well, maybe, you want to do a photo session with my drums, whatever. I have, happy to say, rented out my drums to movies, commercials, whatever.
It's the one with the chimes in the background.
Yes. There's a movie called The Cradle Will Rock. A lot of famous people are in it. My Gretsch drums are in that movie. They're in a Maybelline commercial, whatever. But
wow.
Stanton Moore, I'm sure Stanton Moore owns more Gretsch drums than I do. I'm confident, and Stanton plays the heck out of them. But most of Stanton's drums are like from the 60s to the present. You know what I mean? Most people don't start collecting drums until you get into the late 50s or the 60s. They were just, how many Gretsch sets were made in 1930? not too many.
Yeah.
Certainly not 5-piece sets. I mean, if you go to the 60s or the 70s, there's a lot of 5-piece kits. 1930s, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know, and drummers tended to, my first club date leader would laugh at me because my drums were in cases. That's why I still have these drums, because I take care of them. But drummers would play them and drag them around, you know.
So after Cindy pushed you off the stage, did somebody help you up?
She called security. Security, remove this man, please. Thank you.
No, she's the greatest. She's the greatest.
Yeah. Awesome.
So in the time frame of my early development in drumming and being interested in all this, Jim, pull up the Rogers drum catalog.
Finally, that's what we were
going to get
waiting
to Rogers.
for.
I know David's been just going like, when is he going to talk about the Rogers? And what's cool is on the front cover, it tells you it's 1976, 1977.
Is that you on the cover there? That's you on the cover?
This here?
Yeah.
No, that's Roy Burns on the cover.
Looks like you.
No, I don't have a beard.
You didn't have a beard when
Pat,
you were 12 years old?
Sorry.
I don't have a beard, and I had a little stash before, but it comes in calico colored now, so I have to shave it off.
Nice.
All right, good. So turn, go to the next slide, please. Ding. Remember that in high school? Ding, and you'd have to go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Let's see. After the Rogers one. Am I supposed to have something after that? Let's see.
Yeah, you're supposed to have a picture of the Dynasonic and the Super 10, and you're going backwards, man.
Wait.
Keep going.
Are they named?
Keep going. Unless you didn't download it.
No, I think I did. Maybe those are just out of. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not there. All right, hold on one second. Let's see. I'll see if I can. See if I can rectify that. Talk about the drum while I'm working this.
Yes, David. Let's talk about drums while Jim is.
No, talk about those drums.
Any Rogers drums from the catalogs from the 60s?
No.
Okay.
I don't. I did take a look, and it seems like I would have been 16 in 76. So there was a store where there was a family store in town where a young man was working with them. And he told me that he was opening his own store, and that was because of the launch of CBS Musical Instruments.
Yes.
Having Rogers, Fender, and Rhodes.
Yes.
And so he opened his store, and it would have been the beginning of the memory lock stuff. And I was just blown away. When Jim finds it, there's a picture on page 4 of what's called the Ultra Power 8, and this was my dream drum set at 16, having moved up. I liked the ones in the Gretsch catalog that had 2 bass drums. I was a double bass drum fanatic for a while, and this was pre-double pedal stuff. And then I discovered that when you get to page 12, I have a 72 Dynasonic that I actually, and again, that was a joyful thing. I bought a really kind of disheveled drum for about $100 on eBay. It didn't have the top or bottom rim, but it had the throw off, and it was in good shape. And I bought the shell. And, worked on polishing it and cleaning it up. And then I bought another one, and I took the lugs off of that one. And then I sold that shell because I didn't need 2 shells. And a friend of mine at the time when we were discussing this, he said he played in what was called an organ duo. And wasn't aware of that. But basically a keyboard player who played key bass with his feet and a drummer, and he would tour and play with this guy. And he said that a lot of times he would end up going to check out other bands while he was on the road, and he would find guys who had Rogers Dynasonics, and they couldn't get them tuned right, or they had a problem with understanding how much tension should be on the snare and the frame, and then how much tension should be, on the strings. and he said he used to get he used to tell him, hey, buy me dinner, or buy me a couple rounds of drinks, and I'll make that Rogers drum sing for you, because he understood the concept. So here is my 72 Dynasonic. It weighs a ton. I mean, it really does. It's chrome on brass, and I appreciate that. The beauty of the Dynasonic snare drum, for those of you that maybe don't quite know it, is that the mechanism at the bottom, the snares are held in an aluminum frame. And this is actually a brand new frame. The drums that I was searching out, it seemed like most of the drummers had just not had the frame, and they just put regular 12 strand or 20 strand snares on them. And I thought, no, I really want to get this back to the way it should be. So after running the serial number and talking to a wonderful gentleman who runs the Rogers group on Facebook named Jeff Burke. Very knowledgeable man, and has a major Rogers collection and knows about all the different variable pieces. I actually contacted him, and he talked me through it, and I do have a sheet in my files that says how you're supposed to adjust and get all that stuff working. And it uses the same snare strainer throw off that the Super 10 and the and I believe the Power Tone, David, right?
Correct.
The Power
Yes.
Tone has the same snare strainer, so that was kind of neat that they kept that in process. Any luck finding the?
I have them on my computer, but they won't load up in OBS because the show
okay,
already
that's
started.
Great. I'm kind of waving this around, so that's cool. 10 lug, ding ding. I'm a 10 lug fan.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. And then the ability to work on getting the drum to sound good just by being patient. Jeff said what you have to do if you have a Dynasonic, or if you are interested in working with one, he said you take the strainer off the drum, you take the snare bracket, or let me see, they have a term for that. Let's see what it says here in the catalog. Snares are mounted with computer-controlled epoxy, not solder. Let's see. The cleanest, fastest, sharpest snare drum in the world has now been improved. The new die-cast snare frame guarantees perfect alignment of snares. Snare wires are manufactured, not stretched like others, to exactly 7 coils per inch. Synthetic foam under each snare butt plate cushions the snare and absorbs the shock, even with the extra heavy playing. So he said take the snares and tighten them so when you strum across them, you get a note. You get almost a pitch. He said there's not a specific note, but the concept is that you would get, them to kind of, produce a tone. And then he said, then you know that you have that right. And then he said, then just align it between the throw off and the butt plate, and make sure that you don't choke the snare drum, because he said a lot of guys will get this right and then they'll put it on the drum and they'll over tighten it, and he said they'll choke the crap out of it.
You have one of those, Dave?
Great rim shot. It doesn't have die cast on it, but it really barks well. Yeah. The snare strainer is easy to work with, and once you get the bracket down, I know a lot of guys were asking like hundreds of dollars, like $125 for this used, and Rogers has re-geared. And in fact, if you take a look, I'll bring it down with the stand. I have a brand new Rogers style stand on the Power 10, and the cool part was they're remanufacturing or making them, based on the old specs, and it was $52, shipped to the door with the snares mounted, the strings included, a little fold out on how to do it. And once I called Jeff to start with, or actually I texted him, and he kind of said, here, I get this video you can watch that'll help. And just a really nice drum. It's a little bit deeper in sound.
By the way, Anthony Cucina said that he had a set of Blue Sparkle Rogers back in the 60s that he believes were called the Holiday Set.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Bob Sears said that he had a 72 Dynasonic that he bought new in 72.
Nice.
And Ray Grappone commenting, heavy drum, killer sound.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can really get it. I know that things I've read recently said that this was Buddy Rich's favorite snare, even though he wasn't playing, Rogers brand at the time. If you watch various videos and you check with the photographs and stuff, generally Buddy's playing a Dynasonic, even with a Ludwig kit, even with a Slingerland, with the Slingerland kits, and then I think finally he just, I think he found a set of Radio Kings that were from the 30s or 40s. Mel Torme actually ended up with them when Buddy passed, and now they've been donated by Mel's wife because he has passed, and they are in the Washington, where they have all the museums, the space and air and all that stuff.
Smithsonian.
Pardon?
Smithsonian.
The Smithsonian. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's where they are. They're that kit that would have been like the last one that he played.
Wow.
And and there's pictures like with in the display of him and Mel Torme, and in fact on Hudson, I'm pretty sure there's a book that Mel Torme wrote about Buddy's life. Oh. If it's not there, it's somewhere else. But I saw it on Hudson. They were very close friends. I think Mel Torme might have been like Johnny Carson kind of like played drums for a while, but
Mel Torme was a singer, and I saw him with Buddy at Brooklyn Academy of Music when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I saw Buddy a couple times basically playing in high school auditoriums with the band. And
with Mel Torme?
No, not Mel Torme. Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I've never. My parents went. I think the closest Buddy Rich came to our area was Chautauqua, New York. They have the Institute up there, and they have a concert series. And I'm pretty sure my mom and dad went to hear him.
Dave, you own any Rogers drums?
I do.
What do you have?
Well, it's all because of this guy.
Hey, you're not. Don't point. That's not polite.
Yeah, I got my first Rogers snare drum from Pat, and not to digress.
I got my first Rogers snare drum
from my dear friend, my brother from another Pat. But I did see Buddy Rich perform, and he played. I don't mean to correct you, Pat, but he played a five. He played a five snare drum.
It depends on when you saw him, but there was, there were times when I've got some photographs I can show you.
Well, it's true, but the thing is, because I just read up on this, and yes, Buddy played Rogers, and in the heyday, in my humble opinion, the heyday of Rogers was the late 50s to 1967, and once they had the fire in Covington, Ohio. But anyway, Buddy loved his first White Marine Pearl Rogers kit, and he used that snare drum, and he loved that snare drum. That snare drum was stolen. And when
the Dynasonic was.
Yes, Buddy's first White Marine Pearl, and he loved that drum. That drum was stolen, and when Buddy got it back, it was never the same. And in fact, I read an article very recently where Buddy said he hated the Rogers. Buddy was incredibly talented drummer, can't say anything against him, but he was very temperamental, very outspoken, very opinionated. And sorry to say, here we go, 1967, Buddy jumped from a Rogers endorsement to Fox to Slingerland in 1 year. It's a fact. 1967, he drummed 3 companies. He wasn't like Gene Krupa. Here's a great example. Gene Krupa played Slingerland his whole life. He was on the cover of every Slingerland catalog for 30 years. Gene was a sweetheart, great drummer. Buddy and a lot of guys jumped companies. So I saw Buddy play Ludwig's. He had a Ludwig snare drum. In the end of his career, he was playing a vintage Slingerland kit. But my good friend Ed bought a Five snare drum recently, and he definitely loved Five's fiberglass snare drums.
He did,
definitely.
and I did see that.
But Dynasonic was short-lived because basically what happened, Rogers was bought by CBS, and Buddy Rich, there was a whole thing that went down, and Buddy was like, are you going to give the Buddy Rich Big Band a record deal? And CBS basically said, we have no interest in giving the Buddy Rich Big Band a record deal. And Buddy was like, see ya. Vox is going to give me tons of money. And then Slarely did. So
when he played Vox, he didn't play the amoeba-shaped bass drum,
very
right?
briefly. I mean, in 1 year, he jumped from 3 drum companies. So it was very brief, you know.
Yeah.
You know, this doesn't, you know, he's a great, great drummer. You can't take that away. But as far as the history.
Well, I think he was probably looking for the best deal.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Come on. How many drummers haven't jumped drum companies because they get a sweeter deal? You know.
Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Moving right along.
Moving right along.
Speaking of Gene Krupa, okay, you just kind of launched that. All right. So you got to hear my Dynasonic, right?
Yeah.
And this is my.
Make it a good one. This is your last one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, it's after 9. We're gonna go into some
I know.
Q&A.
It's past your bedtime, Jim. I understand. I got you.
It is actually.
So.
It just told me to go to bed.
No, I didn't. I just said I think it's past your bedtime.
No. My health app just told me to go to sleep. My app on my phone.
Did?
Yeah.
77, 78 Slingerland catalog.
You don't look a day over 69, Pat.
I'm not a day over 69, Dave. Thanks for asking.
I'll give you $5 for that.
I sent these to Jim. I don't know what happened. His computer ate them or got them stuck or something.
My
but
dog
that's
Nala ate them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, anyways, this is the Sound King chrome snare drum with the Zoomatic snare strainer, and this was.
Is that this one?
Yes, that's it. You found it.
Hold on. I'm going to put it right over your face, Pat.
Huh?
Wait, hold on.
We're getting a little testy here
found
tonight.
Well, I have it. I mean, I can.
He found your picture, Pat.
I just have to see if I can, sneak it in
Yeah,
here.
so this was the Gene Krupa model.
There it is.
For a long time. And in 77, 78, Gene's only on the back page of the catalog. He's no longer in the front. And actually, it's a picture of Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa with the Lionel Hampton Orchestra in Toronto in 1971, and they're doing this double drum kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was not called in the catalog at that time. And 77 was the year I graduated from high school. So this thing weighs a ton. Beautiful drum. It's got to be, when you get into any kind of weight, it's got to be brass and chrome. This was a real joy to build. I did the same thing. I, searched out the parts for it, got the snare strainer, throw off the whole works, put a brand new head on it this morning because the other one looked a little kind of funky. And drum roll, please. This Saturday, I will turn, and it's my birthday. And I share a birthday with
Gene Krupa.
Gene Krupa. Exactly.
Really?
So that was a good drum to end on.
Nice. That was a beautiful drum. And I showed your slide.
Well, I'll have to watch it on the reruns there, James, but I appreciate that.
Does anybody have questions on any of... Oh, Anthony Cusina said Mel was an excellent drum set player. Yes, and when I saw him with Buddy at Brooklyn Academy of Music, he played drums that night. He sat in on a couple of tunes.
Cool.
Did you see that?
I would like to see some footage of that because I heard that he was a very good drummer.
Yeah.
And he actually had a drum set from Buddy as a gift prior to, getting the last one after Buddy passed. They were good friends. And like I said, there's I want to read that book this year that Mel Torme wrote about Buddy because there was a really cool connection there.
And by the way, happy birthday, Pat, in advance.
Thank you very much,
and
Jim.
Anthony Cusina saying happy birthday.
I'll be having a lesson with you on Friday,
That's right.
day before that birthday. But if you want to get, you want to order some cake, like Dave sent me a cake for my birthday in the mail.
I love that.
From the people.
He put it in an envelope?
No, he put it in a box. It was
There's
the
a lot
first time
more
he
than a
ever said
cake
to
in
me,
that box.
I hope it gets to you like by Wednesday or Thursday this week because there's like because it's perishable.
All right.
And I'm like,
That was very nice of me.
sending me a banana or something in a mail?
It was very nice. Well, does
Yeah, thank
anybody
you,
have
David.
any drum questions? Kevin Lehman said this was fun, gents. It was fun. It was a really, really a fun time. You know, I myself, I am not the collector type. So having, you know, a couple guys that know this stuff, I know a little bit, but I am not a collector. I sell pretty much everything. I keep it for a little while and then I get rid of it.
I know. I have your bass drum that
I gave you, that bass drum.
You gave me a bass drum, and I'm gonna set a little kit up with that bass drum, like a little jazz piece set. I'm gonna try to come up with 2 more pieces. Like
and actually, I have to correct that. I don't sell everything. I pretty much give everything away.
Give it away.
I give away a lot of drums, but I've kept my Tama Star Classic Maples for years and years, and love them and play them, and very happy with them. But Ray Rapone saying happy birthday, Pat and Gene.
Thank you.
Bob
and
Sears
Gene.
saying happy birthday, Pat. Anthony Casina saying also Sammy Davis Jr. was an excellent set player also.
Yes,
and
definitely.
If you follow Jerome Flood on Instagram, make sure that you look for the Sammy Davis clip because it's hilarious.
I have seen it. It's wonderful. The
It's
Jerry
very
Lewis
nice.
and Buddy Rich battle is really cool too.
Yeah, Jerome is he's a funny guy. He does some good things with those. Any questions for Dave Clive on his beautiful, very rare collection of drums that are sitting here? Hey, Stan. He said he'll see you Monday, Pat.
I sure
Lucia
will.
says
we have a
happy
drum
birthday.
lesson.
Lucia
Yeah,
says
thank you.
Thank you, Jim, Pat, and Dave. This was a great live stream. Have a good night, everyone. Lucia checking out.
See you, Lucia.
What do you need?
Did I give you your catalog back?
I got the Gretsch book. I got
Oh,
the
the Gretsch book in the American. Yeah. Just making sure. Yeah, man. Definitely a lot of fun tonight. And Pat, you had really interesting stories and some really cool drums. I would love to get those Rogers drums off of you. Those I would like to have in my collection.
Rogers?
I will.
Yeah.
I will send you a picture, but that's the best I can do. I just bought them from. But that's when I came in April of 2020.
Yeah.
And actually got to see the Jim Toscano teaching studio.
Yes.
In person,
you've been in this
got some nice pictures.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. And I brought you a T-shirt and an album.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Which I can't wear that T-shirt anymore. But
I know you
my
can't.
daughter's been wearing it, so
That's
she's
okay.
allowed.
Yeah, that's good. You can use it. You can use it to polish the car.
Yeah, exactly.
You know. And when,
Oh, one more question from
David
Anthony
looks
Cucina for Dave.
confused.
Anthony asked us earlier, what new current Gretsch kit would you choose today if you were going to buy a brand new one?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. I honestly prefer, I'm really glad because I wanted to talk about one thing. I definitely prefer the USA Custom,
Amen.
but I want to say something because there's a lot of confusion about this. Not that, I mean, I just know what I know because I love Gretsch and I've been playing him since I was 12. But you need to know this, that the die-cast Gretsch rims definitely sound different. And I love Stanton Moore. When I go to Jazz Fest, well, I didn't go for the past 2 years thanks to the pandemic, but I saw him one night with his USA Customs, and I saw him another night or the next night before or after with his Brooklyn Gretsch, and there is a difference, okay? That's a big difference. The die-cast hoops, here is a die-cast hoop, is a heavier, darker sound. There's a big difference with the rim shot. So definitely on a snare drum, you're going to hear a huge difference between a die-cast hoop and what is it, the double flanged,
Right.
you know,
Right. Or triple flange.
or triple flange. I do honestly like the Ludwigs a lot, which is a triple flange. It's some people like them, some people don't like them. Tony Galino, who's a master drum builder for GMS, does not like die-cast hoops. The only drums he has, other than the ones he made, which are GMS, are Gretsch and Rogers. But anyway, there is a big difference between Brooklyn Gretsch and USA Custom Gretsch. Brooklyn Gretsch are cheaper because they do not have die-cast hoops. So
there's a movement, David. I've noticed on the internet. A lot of guys are buying the lesser expensive kit, and then they're upgrading the rims.
Doesn't
and
work.
they've noticed doesn't work.
Does not work.
Oh, okay.
Not to be a know-it-all, but I know what I know. This is a fact. When Stanton Moore, sorry to talk about him, but I love Stanton so much. But Stanton got his touring set now is a Brooklyn Gretsch kit, which sounds killer. You know what I mean? And that's the one was at drum camp, and we all know.
I was there. I could hear them.
Stanton put a set of die-cast hoops on the drums. They sounded dead. He told me this, so no offense, Stanton. So I believe he called Paul Cooper, you know, the master drum builder at Gretsch today, and he said that he did that. And he was like, the Brooklyn Gretsch were designed for the double flange hoops, and the USA Customs, there's a difference in the shell construction.
Right.
So the USA Custom, you got to understand that the USA Customs today are basically like my Gretsch Progressive Jazz. 6-ply shell, maple, poplar maple, die-cast hoops. If you buy a USA Custom today, yes, today it's a Keller shell. This one is a Jasper, okay? But the Brooklyn Gretsch is a different shell construction and does not have a die-cast hoop. And therefore, they sound different. So if I were you, I would go to a great drum store like Steve Maxwell in Manhattan. I'll give a plug for myself. I just recently started teaching drums at Carl Place. Sam Ash in Carl Place. Go to a store that has them, play them, and see if you hear the difference. I
didn't have a chance to hear them, but I did see, you know, a couple of different posts in the Gretsch group that, you know, some guys were upgrading. Well, you know, and I didn't know if that was going to work or not, but they didn't play any examples afterwards. You know, but I agree with you. You know, don't was they to say don't mess with Mother Nature. You know, like when design is right, just kind of go with it.
No reason to reinvent the wheel. You know.
Correct. Yes, very good. Yeah,
they got that one.
Nice. All right, so there's your answer, Anthony. I hope that helps. And thank you, everybody who hung out with us tonight. We really appreciate it. It's been super fun.
Thank you so much.
Having show and tell with my brothers in drumming here. From Pennsylvania to Brooklyn to Staten Island, all of us hanging out together. And, you know, we'll definitely see you on the next live stream. I have Larry Lelly on next time. And, of course, thank you to my good buddy, Pat Ross and Dave Clive. It's been super fun. And we'll see you on the next one. Everybody have a great week. And we'll talk to you real soon. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Great job today, guys. All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you real soon.